All right, everybody, welcome to Accelerate Your Teams podcast. Good time of the day, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and I'm happy to welcome you here today. And I have some latest news. Engineers are very close to create an artificially intelligent dog, but unfortunately it keeps barking at the wrong decision tree. Well, that was a bad joke, but I'm just trying to be funny in the very beginning to pump our emotions and welcome you at Accelerated Your Team's webcast. So today's topic is Teamwork 2.0, the impact of AI on the future of collaboration. Very deep and interesting topic, and it's a great opportunity to learn and share. And I appreciate your time being here. Please repost this link to this event to invite other people who can get benefit from it. They can also view it offline and at their convenient time. And during the conversation, please feel free to ask your questions and leave your comments, and we will in the chat, and we will be happy to discuss them. And my name is Vladimir Bushin, your host, and I am a product development consultant and agile coach. I help companies improve quality engineering, organizational performance, and innovation. And I'm really passionate about this. And today I am very excited to have a very special guest with me, an experienced agile professional and management consultant, Tariq Juneja. And Tariq lives in London and helping leadership teams form product growth strategy and evolve business agility. His experience spans across different industries, including central and local government, insurance, retail, construction, IT, and others. Tariq is also a mentor, thought leader, speaker, and avid learner. After getting his MBA degree, Tariq continued to study at senior management program at the University of Cambridge. And Tariq drives forward innovation and adaptiveness to the modern market opportunities and new technology. And today we'll discuss cutting edge new technology in the context of the organizational performance, how AI may impact the future of collaboration. Thank you, Tariq, for joining to share your thoughts about it.
Thank you, Vladimir. That was a wonderful introduction. Appreciate that. So good evening, afternoon, and good morning to everybody.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And please feel free to, our audience, please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and Tariq will address it. And to kick it off, Tariq, could you tell us a bit about your agile journey and how did you come to consulting? And do you believe that consulting will be a viable and common practice in the future, and why?
Yeah, okay. So for me, I've always been in technology, starting out in systems and working in that arena for a very long time, and did technical degrees. After that, really, I moved into more of the technology delivery of systems and environments as a technology project person. And through that exposure, I really developed an experience for product and started to move into the product space and became a product manager in technology, mostly SaaS products and then security products. One of the learnings for me as I moved from much more older telecoms waterfall environments into a lot more cutting edge, newer agile environments was how much more successful agile projects and product delivery were, and the insane faster speeds that we could achieve in these environments. And I also found that it really enabled me to get to the core of dysfunction or issues that we were experiencing in an organization faster. And so that kind of whetted my appetite. And over a period of about 5 to 8 years, I've been moving more and more into the agile space in terms of the product delivery work I've done, and then into the coaching and consultancy piece. I do think there's a space in the consultancy market. I do think that this is an important piece that will play out in in the companies. I do think, however, that it has to be specific and very, very much bespoke to the companies you're working for. And I think that's important. There has to be a sense of, as Steve Jobs said, skin in the game. We want to really understand what they do and how they do it and what they want to achieve. And then we're going to assist in terms of the coaching ways of working to help them. So I hope that gives you an idea of my journey and why I find this so fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I totally agree about the skin in the game. And there's an aspect that, or maybe kind of like the niche where consultants fit in the organizational goals, and we know that consultants usually drive for results, and results for consultants is pretty much what they sell. So that means they do want to have a positive impact. They want to help success of the company. And though consultants may be more specifically focusing on a certain aspect of it, rather than employee, maybe broadly addressing different issues that they see, consultants will be more focused on achieving a specific goal that is being set. At the same time, it could be helpful for leaders of a company to understand clearly what is being a goal, and where we're driving and what we are applying. So from this perspective, consultants could potentially find a better structure, and also not being in the system, they would be free from the constraints of the system as well. And
yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that part of the role as a consultant is being able to have the eyes and ears of an outside person. You've got that outside perspective. Sometimes, so many times in companies, people can't see the wood for the trees because they're so busy with the day-to-day. The ability to be able to come in and have that overview and to provide that sense of clarity and to feed that back to the teams, I think that's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And specifically agile coaches, as consultants, they may come in, they can see with the fresh eyes what the company is doing, and what the potential opportunities for improvement. And from this perspective, I'm wondering, what do you think about why, after so many years of development software, companies still need to focus on teamwork? Why teamwork continues to be a topic for improvement?
Well, I think sometimes common sense is not that common. And I think when we get back to talking to each other as people, that human collaboration element. And oftentimes, a lot of the technology and the business apparatus around us, in a sense, is separating us from some of that. And so working in teams, working as a coach with different frameworks, what we're really trying to do is to get that human collaboration. We're trying to get that team collaboration. We're trying to get that feedback loop, and we're trying to increase and speed that up. And I think we're kind of like at a critical juncture with AI, where that's going to start to accelerate a lot of what we're seeing in industry. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like, nevertheless, the teamwork is being a topic for decades and kind of circulating in different conversations. For some reason, we still have silos between different groups, and we still have barriers that teams need to overcome. We're still working on dependencies, and those dependencies may slow teams down. And now the agile professionals are talking a lot about streamlining the flow, and they talk about the product flow. Like, very interesting analogy was with Toyota, when nobody would understand the Toyota, how Toyota is being so successful, and at first they everybody ignored them, and then they started to notice them, and only after like 2 or 3 decades, people start to study them and saying like, okay, what is the Toyota way? So it takes time to kind of process and acknowledge the new advantages way of doing things. And I think that we still have a lot to learn about streamlining the process and creating the the effective flow. And it seems like there is still a fair amount of percent. Some people say like about 90% could be saved by streamlining the flow. So the cycle time, the overall time from start to finish could be decreased 90% by, and this unbelievable number that's been discussed. So, and part of the problem is miscommunication. So according to the survey, 67% respondents agreed that the communication needs to be improved, and AI may improve communication. And also 33% of people also thinking that communication will help creating an environment where people can do their best. So how do you see AI changing the way teams work together in the future? I'm curious here.
Yeah, I mean, I think a really good example of that is what's just happened at the moment with Microsoft. We've had ChatGPT, we've had the whole OpenAI piece playing out. We've seen the advanced, nuanced environment with so much more richer information coming out of these systems. And already, I think the embedding has started. One of the things that's interesting as I've been doing more and more looking into AI is that there's an AI disappearance that occurs. As soon as AI becomes technologically advanced enough and we're using it in our environment, we stop to realize that it's AI. So for example, when you look at your phone and it gives you face recognition, that's completely AI. There's many, many examples like that where the augmented part of the reality has already occurred and more are now increasing. If you look at Microsoft's Teams approach, you look at the way that in Teams, you can now transcript, you can record, you'll be able to do more command-based stuff within that environment as it gets richer. You'll be able to have internal planning estimation and even potentially retrospective reflection information being fed back with sets of actions that can remotely be talked about in order to be put into an email or an action and put on the back of a backlog or whatever. So all of these things are no longer in the realms of impossibility. They're becoming more and more real and more functional. And so when we talk about the value stream piece and of streaming things down and getting that gain of 90%, part of what we've been trying to do on a coaching level is to create that awareness and to get teams to do that for value stream streaming or for value stream identification. However, a lot of the technology as it advances is just going to clean it right up and do it for us. So a lot of the work that's been happening in PowerPoint, a lot of the stuff that this repeating of Excel spreadsheets, iteratively, the constant creation of reports for inflection points on certain reports, whole teams and departments that function and do these kinds of things are going to be impacted. It'll actually, the feedback loop will shorten so that when we look at companies such as Salesforce, Dynamics, CRM, even Polaris.io, I know these companies are already using a lot of AI. They're going to see an inflection point where the customer feedback loop will increase to the point where they'll be able to make much more granular decisions on what they're actually going to co-design. And it's almost like, if you remember in the very beginning with the internet, we had the internet, then we had the intranet, which was really an environment for SharePoint portal, Confluence, knowledge-based Documentum. Similar kinds of things are going to potentially play out. Some of this is still hypothetical, but I don't think it's hyperbole anymore. I think it's just a question of time now when we start to get these iterative loops going back into these really rich account management systems with customer data. And I think one of the reasons for that also is that I think we're yielding much richer data now. We're yielding a lot more richer data than we've ever yielded before. And we've got the cloud computational infrastructure in place to be able to do the things that we need. So a lot of the language modeling, patterning stuff in the background has been quietly occurring. And As you know, Arthur C. Clarke once said, you know, when technology is sufficiently advanced, it will appear as magic. And I think we've seen one of those kind of situations with ChatGPT.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing times we live right now. I totally agree. It seems like the whole cycle of producing and testing, testing with the customer, getting feedback, and then adjusting, and then redesigning, improving, and producing again. The whole loop speeds up. Like if you think like 100 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was just like, one rotation in a couple of years, and then, going forward, it started to speed up, and then every year, companies start to, deliver something and test and get the feedback. And now it feels like it's like an RPM of 1,000 rotations per second. It's this decision-making process, and essentially we're gaining intelligence. We're gaining intelligence in the products, in the market, and we get insights. And now doing that manually becomes unbearable. And certain things, we like drinking information like from fire hose, and we have a need for process. And before that, what happened is that when we get new information and we overwhelm with that, we as humans, we just get a cognitive overload. We start to ignore, we start to filter the information. Now we will have much more capacity to process that, because we have AI assistants, we have AI analyzers. Well, I shouldn't say analyzers, artificial intelligence, who can process, or who or which can process the information that we maybe haven't even noticed and we didn't even pay attention. And that's very exciting. And on a more mundane level right now, what could be changing right now is maybe simple things like taking notes and generating summaries. So it's a big time saver. So we don't need to do that. Like after every meeting, you get an email with a summary, and that started to happen right now. Like look at Otter AI. Otter AI, after every meeting, you get a summary, and you know what you were talking about, and you can go back and review that closer. And some other things like providing insights, recognizing patterns and evaluating the options, and then providing those insights during the conversation, maybe in the chat, maybe verbally. And also we have this wonderful co-piloting code. When developers sit together with the AI and develop code together, it's unbelievable. And we pretty much we're seeing that we are coming to AI making more decisions quicker. So I'm afraid that the management practices will be more and more replaced by AI over time.
I think so. I think it's a good segue as well at this point to discuss two topics that I think concern a lot of people. I think the first one would probably be ethics. And I think the second one is probably the kind of the future job scenarios. And I know a lot of people are concerned. I know I've had one nephew call me who's learning development, and he's like, what am I doing? This stuff can improve my code, and it can do so many things. And so I think there's some concern as well out there. And I think on the ethics point, and I don't know if people know, but back in the day, with Asimov, Isaac Asimov, a very famous science fiction writer, he created the 3 robot laws. These were about doing no harm. And I think that's an important ethical point. The other ethical point in this, as we design these systems going forward, is I think the Google AI principles, similar kind of thing about what it's to be used for, its utility, doing no harm and things like that. So I think from an ethics perspective, these are very important design considerations. We know that there's a lot of talk in the AI space about coexistence collaboration. And I think it's really about bringing the right voices to the table. So the more voices we hear from people in ethics, psychology and the social sciences. Building all of that kind of information in, I think, is going to be a very kind of critical thing. As we've seen with ChatGPT, people are now seeing what the technology is capable of, and it'll bring more to the forefront, I think, some of that kind of collaboration on the ethics, the social and psychology front, which will be really useful. I think the other point I'd like to just focus on quickly is on the future workscape, the landscape of how things are going to look in the future. I know a lot of people are concerned about these things. They see machine learning systems that can effectively learn how to fold shirts. There's algorithms, Emily Howell, which creates music, fantastic music based on algorithms. And we know potentially with Google DeepMind, these things will probably be able to even sing at some points. People are like, well, I'm a singer, this thing is making music or it's coding or whatever. But for all of these things, we are already starting to see more and more need for people to work in the AI space in order to create some of these newer areas and to focus on less mundane things, as you said, and on the more creative aspects of their jobs and to kind of head upward. But there's been a whole range of different things. I was listening to a lecture the other day, and they talked about roles such as memory augmentation therapist, plant educator, nano weapon specialist, diffractive optics modeler. So we're seeing a whole lot of new things coming about as well. So I don't think at this stage people should be overly concerned. They should be concerned that a lot of their roles will change, but in terms of the numbers of roles and the things that are out there, there's potentially quite a lot. Over many years, since the weaving loom, Elizabeth I tried to stop the weaving loom because she thought that it'll stop people from being able to manually weave. Didn't happen, just increased the amount of clothes that people could wear. Amazon, we thought, well, what will happen with books? There's more writers now than there's ever been. So it may not be the kind of bleak landscape that people sometimes think. And we are hitting issues in the world in terms of population. It's a kind of strange situation where we're actually escalating in population, but we're very clear on the indicators and predictors that it's actually going to take a steep decline. And already we're starting to see these kinds of things in more in different environments. Japan, for example, they're trying to get AI robots and nannies and nurses for older people. Things like that are on the horizon. The potential for AI for GP is being looked at in the UK because there's no GPs. If you have a GP appointment in the UK, you're very lucky. And we can see how with AI and those kind of general technologies, we can take away a lot of that mundane part of the GP role out, the general practitioner. When you go and see your doctor and you just want some aspirin or Tylenol, and they go through the loops and stuff. So already the basic AI programs of that on the NHS apps have started to appear. And that should start to get richer and be more of a boon to people.
Yeah, amazing. And I didn't realize, and as you were speaking, I was thinking like many of us were caught by surprise by this ChatGPT, because we were thinking like, okay, there are self-driving cars. Well, that those cars, maybe it's natural that we will start use cameras more. Okay, there are some toys, and yes, I remember maybe a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I went to a Best Buy store. It's a huge retail store in the United States, and I went there into the camera section, and there was a camera set up, and it was facing me, and at the same time, it's got a screen, and I came to it, and I look at this, and boom, it took a shot of me, and I'm like, wow, what's this? And I look at my weird picture, and I see like, oh, I look weird, and I start smiling, and bam, it took 2 more shots at me because it started to recognize my smile. and the more that happening, the more I smiled, and then I had to stop it by just going away because I couldn't keep smiling, and it could keep it kept taking shots of me, and I was thinking like, oh my goodness, I'm now being controlled by this machine. But totally, it is recognition of patterns and learning about the camera didn't know my face, but it recognized the pattern. And that will be the power going forward. And we don't realize how many we have already. We kind of got it by surprise. And all of a sudden, 2023 was, a spike of all kinds of AI everywhere. But they existed there. They are staying there, collecting information and learning every day. And
there's a ChatGPT-0 application that was written by a young man. I can't remember where he was. He was very concerned that people would cheat or not use it for their term papers. And so he created an application that would actually check and verify against this. And he called it ChatGPT-0. He wrote it and published it and went to bed. And when he woke up, his phone melted. It just goes to show how fast this is moving and how these kind of things are going to develop. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. I'm wondering what agile coaches should do about this. And we are helping organizations to get faster, more productive, more creative, creating a great culture and all kind of stuff. And what specific agile practices do you think will be most impacted by the integration of AI now and maybe a little bit, in the future?
The agile practices are really part of a subset of ways of working. When we look at all the different ways of working from what we've been doing from Waterfall, we see a general change in the tooling and in the processes based on the application of the newer technologies. So for example, it stands to reason that the way we would, so for example, Slack has already started this. You've got little chat bots or little things which will remind you how many minutes you've used, how much time you've used. We're going to integrate ourselves more into some of these things in the processes or tools within environments. So we take a simple activity such as a daily scrum. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Any blockers or impediments? We're building some of these things in more into the things that we're going to be using and the processes that I think teams are going to have. And then this will automate itself more and more. So even as agile coaches, I think our focus back onto the more human collaboration aspect, that's going to be our strength. That's going to be the area in which coming in from the outside, we're able to be a sounding board to the company and help them to be able to navigate those processes and those tools that will make the most sense. So the role is similar in its most intrinsic sense, which is really the adoption of the people, processes, and the technology. But I think the embedding of a lot of what we do is going to start to happen within that environment. And then that'll become a bit more, as you say, that'll just accelerate. That'll accelerate the uptake of the different ways of working. I think a good analogy would be if you go to a really good golf clinic. And if you go to a really good golf clinic and you want to unlearn your golf swing, so you can relearn a much better golf swing. It'll record you. It will allow you to play back. It'll tell you how to change certain things. And that is exactly what coaches with the newer technologies are going to be doing with AI. We'll be playing that back and improving them and then enabling people to unlearn and relearn things faster. So we're really kind of creating that space where they can increase because the bandwidth of the amount of information flowing is always going to increase. So there has to be some form of filtering mechanisms, and we'll be part of that. So I think a golf clinic, that's probably a good example.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tariq. That is a good example. And maybe from the individual perspective, when you try to learn that, getting your own view from the side and analysis of your patterns will help you. When we talk about agile practices, that could be teams parameters, that the outside look at the teams. And what I'm thinking is maybe that transparency, how everybody is working, how teams working would be critical. It will be kind of tipping point when we start to realize, oh, so many similar patterns happening in the organization, and we now can prioritize of what needs to be addressed first and what is the most impactful. So imagine if we have AI on every meeting, so it is an active participants in all meetings. What that means by active, It's the participant that taking notes, listening to everything, recognize the patterns in the future, probably recognizing body language to understand that after somebody said something, half of the audience were upset. That question need to be addressed in the future, or just pointed out that the half of the participants would rather drill down into the specific topic, or increasing of the transparency when you can request any information from the AI about within the organization about any meeting that was happening. So that transparency, which is we preach in Agile, that transparency would increase the capability for people to make decisions. And
the systems are super rich now. The ability to know what meetings you're having, when you're having, the stats on what you're working on and where you're working on it and stuff. One of the Agile Scrum pillars is transparency. The other one is inspection and adaptation. And with these technologies, the transparency element is increasing as well. And I think it's worth probably mentioning what you mentioned about the values as well in Agile. So for team collaboration, commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. And I think really that courage and that openness is going to be values that in a team we're going to really need to coach more, so that they're able to kind of like align with the newer technologies and the data-rich information in terms of behaviors, in terms of reports, in terms of all of that that's going to become much more accessible in the team. Yeah,
absolutely. And we may not realize that certain things already started to happen. And I'm listening to some of the podcasts of Joe Justice, and there's some information in the internet about how prioritization is happening at Tesla. And it seems like the prioritization at Tesla is done by AI. So there's no product owner that is saying what needs to be done first and next, because AI actually analyzes the critical task that needs to be done and aligns that to the strategy. So imagine, instead of micromanaging the backlog and saying what is a high priority and why, we would say there is the certain strategy. It's kind of like defining the destination and letting the self-driving cars drive there in a way. So an AI can take a huge amount of parameters to take into account to align to the strategy, something that human will never be able to explain, even why one choice is done over the other. And I'm thinking in the next decade, if not sooner, the companies may start to rely more on prioritization by AI rather than human, and the companies which do not trust AI to prioritize, they may be forced to trust, because they will have less advantage if they just rely on empirical and maybe subjective human judgment about what is the most efficient to work on. So
I think leveraging AI in this kind of way is an incredibly smart thing to do by Tesla. If you look at product ownership, you look at product management, it's such a vast discipline that covers so many areas, from competitiveness analysis to features to pricing to strategy to execution. The prioritization and elements of this internally are just small elements. Sometimes people can overly focus on this thing and think, well, oh my God, it's doing me out of a job or whatever. But that's not really the case. I don't think, not in these kind of examples. These are really good adjuncts to help you to take care of a lot of that refinement work that you'd have had to do to break things down and to prioritize some of those things. But the overall epics, the overall product development that you're doing, so much of this is human-based enterprises that those are probably areas that those product folks are going to focus more on as these things come into play. So it's good.
Yep. And Tariq, what do you think? What will be the the role of agile coaches and consultants in helping teams and organizations effectively integrate AI into day-to-day work?
I think there's elements of a call to action here. I think there's a couple of nuggets in this. Probably, and it's a good time to go over some of that. Maybe we could probably discuss that. I think they have to look at their organization holistically. It's a call to action, really. It's happening now, right now. There's no time like the present now. Because the level of, if you look at your organizations from a very high level, you look at the target operating models that you have, I think it's really focusing on a sense of design thinking and workflows at that level. So it's really at the highest levels in an organization. What do you want it to be and what should it look like? One of the problems and issues we have with most companies is they're deep within their paradigm. They're deep within their customer base, but the inflection point is going to hit. What will that look like? How will it be different? What will it impact what we're doing? And it isn't necessarily always clear on the outset. So I'd say that probably that high-level design thinking and agile workflow, I think that's the first thing as a call to action. And I think after that, really, and we've seen this play out with other companies, none of this is really a secret. Netflix has done a lot of work on this. You're really creating roles and responsibilities that are mapped to those agile workflows. And that's really the point at which you're hiring agile teams that provide that high learning phase. It's really that high learning phase where they get that agility in the organization and start to operate differently. And then you get the engagement with the employees, which is going to then give you improved customer feedback loops, especially with how much work is happening with AI at the moment. So effectively, the organizations are becoming more and more product-based. We know a lot of companies have seen this move and are moving in that direction, but it's also a product-based move that's a greater co-design of your products and services with your customers. And I think that's the distinction at the end of it. So if there's kind of like 4 nuggets that I'd give people, those would be it, I think. Yeah, agile workflows, roles and responsibilities, hiring a team that has agility and go through that high learning phase internally. And then at the end of that process, you're building a product organization that's got engaged employees with improved customer feedback that will co-design the products and services with your customers. And I think we're kind of seeing a lot of this playing out already. If you look at the Nike website, I think the Porsche website, the tact heartbeat of the product, things like that, that's already being built in. AI is getting easier to pick this stuff up because you're buying the product online, you're buying it on a website, you're clicking what feature you want. They see how many 21-inch alloy wheels is going on the Tesla Model S. They have an understanding already from that rich data set of what they're going to need to do in terms of the prioritization for manufacturing of the product. So that's just a small example, but that goes to show you the 4 nugget areas I think they should focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't agree more. The way the patterns of work are changing right now. And I would say it's probably a bigger crisis rather than COVID-19, because you remember when COVID-19 happened, before that, we were all going to the office, we book a room, we'll get gathered together in the room, we'll sit together. It was like 5-minute preparation, settle down, then somebody will explain what's going on, and then we will discuss it, and then we would adjourn and we go to another room, to another meeting, or maybe we can go and try it out. So when COVID-19 happened, everything changed. Everybody were online right there. There's no need to book a room. Everybody, if you want to talk to someone, it's online, one-on-one or group collaboration right there in your MS Teams or in Zoom. And it's just a different pattern of work, and you can go to breakout rooms and go back in a second, and it's just completely different way of doing things. And think about like a mob programming, it's different pattern. So the same similar thing we're seeing right now when AI kicks in, and now, okay, well, the companies who are using AI, they're gaining different patterns of work, and they're just becoming different. So it's no longer being you know, a siloed, separated conversation. We are gathering data everywhere and analyzing that and leverage that. So same I would say about the pattern of roles. So if we remember, like in the beginning of, you know, software development, if something isn't working, you know, a company leader would put a manager and say, okay, something is not getting done, go figure it out and do that, and figure out why some software is not getting done. And that worked for a while, and then after a while we realized, oh, we actually need, we don't need to just push things through, we need to set up a flow, and we need to have agile people.
Yeah.
And this trend, obviously it happened, the trend started to happen when there was Agile Manifesto declared, and, you know, around that time, and we say, no, we don't need managers to push this through and, you know, negotiate between each other and do things on each other's expense, but no, we actually need to create a flow. And then we start to say, maybe we should actually create a flow for the whole organization. But what's happening now, we need to have, instead of agile coaches, we need to have AI savvy agile coaches who will be helping organizations to deploy AI in their teams and leverage that. Who is going to do that?
Fully 24-hour
Yeah.
operational international companies on a remote level we've never experienced before. Built by AI with full augmented reality applications, developing and operating over time. So a lot of what we are still imagining in those spaces are being put into place with different type of models. I don't really understand the technology in that sense, only the application and the adoption of what that means. So, you know, we have augmented reality pieces, we have automated pieces, and the remote piece is going to mean that we've seen some of this play out over the last 10-15 years with companies like Automatic that run WordPress, that are fully remote, you know, $100 million company, and similar kinds of things are going to become much more commonplace. And I think COVID's a great example. COVID is an example where we had remote technologies sufficiently advanced to be able to adopt them at a certain point. However, we weren't. As human beings, the necessity, in a sense, drove the adoption of those technologies and the enhancement of those technologies, which is now creating a scenario for organizations such as, I mean, for example, our simple collaboration is Bushin Quest Consulting. We wouldn't be able to do this kind of thing in a past environment. So already the creation of smaller boutique consultancies, organizations, matching is already starting to happen. So it's going to be a much more richer, vibrant environment overall for the world. And I think one of the difficulties, I think, was that up until this point, the technology had been developing, but sufficiently silently and quietly that people didn't realize that oh, I see, that's what it is. So they would see simple things like 3D or 4D printing. Okay, in Dubai, they did a 3D building. Let's go, wow, really? Can we really do that? Can we create 3D drugs? Oh, okay, it might potentially be a thing. The augmented reality piece with Oculus is starting to become more and more real. The total virtual office space, we know with Moore's law and the whole development of the processor, a lot of this was predicted by Professor Ray Kurzweil at Singularity University. He talked a lot about this. And so we've also got crowd-based collaboration. We had the peer-to-peer stuff that happened early on with PayPal, all of those things. And then we've had actual, you know, crowd-based collaborations and organizations that are going to become more and more prominent, popping up around the world. And then the last bit is the computer-supported collaborative design piece, where before it was just a CAD/CAM model becoming more and more advanced with a couple of people huddled around a screen. Now with the advent of, well, we both went to university with on our MBA with Professor Haroon. That was totally virtual MBA with a metaverse component built into it. So that whole computer supported collaboration design environment will get much, much richer for engineers, for artists, even for people that are, or even orchestras. So you could potentially even see a fully virtual orchestra in the future. And it isn't, and part of that is because of the AI component. So it isn't just that AI is augmenting it, but AI is going to make a lot of those environments much more richer. And of course, we've already touched so much on the collaborative intelligence piece, because that's been the most obvious that people have seen with face recognition, with Siri, with Alexa, and things like that. And that environment can only get richer from this point onward.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And
exciting.
yeah, absolutely exciting. And you can't really help imagining in the future, what may happen and what potential doesn't open. And with ChatGPT, all of a sudden everybody was shocked, like, okay, this is real now. Okay, this is real. There is intelligence and it's growing and growing fast. And then boom, Microsoft, and then boom, Google. Well, Google has some hiccup, but this is just a stepping stone, and it's not the end of Google attempt to do that, because they already have a pretty smart machines that can play chess and play Go game better than anybody in the world. So they just need to figure out how to put stuff together. So Tariq, what do you think will happen with the customer collaboration and the cycle time, that cycle time when you kind of get this feedback loop, how it's going to be shaped up over time, and how do you see the customer collaboration in the future, AI powered?
Much richer and much, much more diverse. I think that part of it's already playing out. And I think that's why I refer to it very much on my fourth nugget. That's really more and more of what we've talked about so much in so much of what's been happening with personalization for the last 20 years with the internet. That personalization is going to increase. And I think in a kind of like as a futurescape, we will see much, much more deeper feedback coming in from customers that's going to be actually implemented. So it'll become faster, those cycles, and people's needs, wants, and requirements will be met quicker. And I think people will expect that more and more. What that will mean in the future in terms of the products themselves, or what the solutions or services look like, I couldn't really say. I could only say what the technology is actually doing with AI at the moment. I think the best example of that is the Model S Toyota. I mean, the Model S Tesla. And you've got, hubs and things, and you can see how they're ordering things, and then they'll know how to make that faster. So that customer collaboration piece. And I think probably areas where this will start to increase more and more will be fashion, will be music, will be art, where the customer is more involved in the process of what they are going to purchase or what they're going to get and what it would look like. And that feedback will speed up, which
Yeah.
is very exciting, because who knows what that's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm wondering how quickly the decisions could be made, because based on the available data, if you can grasp a fair amount of data, the decision will be just almost like calculating the decision rather than kind of weighting it, like what is more important, what is less important, and sitting together in a room and trying to kind of choose between the bad and the worse, and and going with and choosing the solution that fits the best in this current situation, whatever, or good and the best, whatever. But in any case, it seems like with all of this happening, the company leaders and the technology leaders needs to do something right now. So what do you think, from your perspective, the company leaders need to start doing today, and what do they need to think about for a nearest future? What would be your advice?
I think the heart of it is really increase that rich discussion internally about AI at the highest level, right? Like, guys, let's start talking about this. What does that really mean for us? What would that look like? have that rich discussion in the C-suite, have that discussion and really determine what that's going to look like for yourselves in the future, and keep that debate going as you design and think through what your future organization will look like. With the delivery of that, of course, you're impacted in terms of what you look at for your roles and responsibilities, and in terms of the kind of teams that you'll bring on to help you build that organization of the future. But I think it's really, for C-suite, I think it's really that rich discussion in the boardroom, in those high-level meetings, and that really, this isn't some kind of hypothetical scenario, that this is very, very real. The way that you're all working is really being determined much, much more by the level of adoption of the technology that you have available to you. And it's all there. Whether you look at Google Suites or you look at Microsoft Suites, you look at Salesforce, all of these things have these AI augmented tools being built in. So I would say high-level discussions ongoing, and a call to action in terms of 3-4 nuggets that senior teams can take away, that they can start speaking to their teams about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And those discussion needs to lead to some actions. I mean, discussion is great, and education. We first of all, we need to start seeing more companies investing in at least research and education about AI, and having a trend that we will have companies that leverage AI more advanced. And the company, that means people in the company. So that means instead of agile coaches, we need to have more of AI savvy agile coaches. Instead of developers, we need to have more of AI experienced developers and AI experienced testers, and AI experienced leaders as well. So that means the company to first start to learn and explore, and we also need to understand that information is everywhere, and the context of what we do is also everywhere, and the context is producing this this necessary data that we can analyze. So the products we produce, the decisions we make, the documents we write, our conversations, what we say, how we say it, and even how we look when we say it, it does matter. And this is how the company finds the balance to make certain, to arrive to certain decisions and doing some actions. Some companies have already started gather that context and feed it as a training data and test data to the machine. And we know that machine learning is kind of goes like very, very slowly at the beginning. It's like no results, no results. The first % of results taking 95% of time, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a huge spike and everything accelerates very quickly. So if we were like starting to develop AI, maybe, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years ago, now it's the time when it start to accelerate. It's the time when AI start to be kind of democratized. And we need to understand that it now needs to happen the same way. There is no time to wait, essentially, because you need to go through this 95%. If you start later, and you could be, as a leader, you could be thinking, kind of confused by the fact that nobody else is doing that yet, but you never know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Technology lag time can really hit you. We've seen it time and time again. Blockbuster being replaced by Netflix, Kodak being replaced because of a digital camera, Nokia disappeared overnight. And again, we saw it with the carburetor, the injection system in a car. All of these are really great examples of organizations that weren't able to keep up with the technology, weren't able to understand at the highest levels what's happening. And having that heartbeat discussion constantly in the organization and at the highest levels, getting on board with a learning culture, a learning organization that's going to embed that kind of R&D for AI, for blockchain, all these technologies that are coming. They're coming and they're already, when you look at the landscape and you focus in technology, you can, because you're already in it, you can very much see that these things are there. A lot of folks that are operating in businesses and in companies and in organizations are very, very busy with running the organization, running those products and services. And sometimes it can detract from the amount of things that are happening from the outside. So yeah, Vladimir, I would really echo your words. At the highest level, having that design thinking for a learning culture of AI is critical as a call to action.
Critical, and having your employees doing, being, savvy and educated and experienced with AI. But if the company does not have that, needs to gain momentum, I think it will really comes to hiring, consultants, hiring people who could help to boost that, that process and increase. So now I think that AI will pull us, the US right out of recession with all our unemployment and layoffs, whatever. Soon enough, people will learn more about AI, and companies will start hiring back those people who are experienced and learning and exploring, because it is crucial. It's a race. It's a race. So I would like to remind everybody, if you have I see that Andrea is making a comment. Useful and accurate information is key. And please put your comments in the chat. We would love to discuss that as well. So I totally agree. Useful and accurate information is key to learning, because if you learn based on wrong information and you train your AI in the wrong information, you're not going to have a good results. It will be something that you need to relearn, of course. So we are talking about collective intelligence, and maybe we can talk about collective intelligence next time. It's a very exciting topic. I think we're running out of time. Tariq, what do you think? We only have 3 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, we're almost there. Again, please feel free to, it's a really lovely, rich discussion and very much on point. Anybody have any questions or comments or stuff, we're more than happy to reply to them offline, and then also provide a recording of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can actually invite others to this event, and they can watch it offline. And Tariq, thank you so much for your time. It was super helpful. Was very insightful. And please connect to us on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to answer your questions offline. We are going to collaborate with Tariq in the future. I'm so excited to, to discuss some of the topic related to AIs and agile coaching as well. It was the Accelerate Your Teams webcast, and I'm your host, Vladimir Bushin. And I will be happy to invite you to upcoming sessions. We plan to talk about the project managers and set of how it is set for AI, and further what the new collaboration tools are getting available for remote first development teams, and how remote first companies stand among the others, and how AI assistants will help and co-pilots help the remote first companies. So please stay tuned, stay in touch, and take care. Have a wonderful time. Great.
Thank you. Bye.